Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Sunday morning big football show and more. I'm your host, Mac, with your co-host, Jack Hirsch, James Martin, Keith Engle, and the Philly sports guys should be coming in pretty soon. Good morning to everyone out there, and I hope you're ready to hear what the best Sunday morning show on the internet. Good morning, guys. How you doing today?
Good morning, fellas.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Doing well.
So I guess we're going to talk about the NBA playoffs first. Some pretty good games. Cleveland does get by Orlando, 97-83. Jared Allen with 19 points. To beat Cleveland, as we saw last year with the Knicks, you kind of got to be physical. And I don't think the Orlando Magic is really a physical team. They're more a shooting team. What do you guys think about yesterday's game between Cleveland and Orlando?
Well, I'm going to say this. It's a successful year for the Orlando Magic, no matter what. They took a big leap forward with all their young talent. There's a lot more pressure on the Cleveland Cavaliers to win this series, especially the way they were bumped in the first round by the Knicks last year. You wake up this morning, you hear Donovan Mitchell, he scored 30 points. No one talks about my guy, Jared Allen. Night in, night out. What did he do? Get 18 rebounds yesterday? No one talks about that. We just had Donovan Mitchell. I mean, we're fixated on points. A guy could shoot 10 for 30, but he gets 25 points, and that's what they're going to list. I mean, come on. I mean, Cleveland Cavaliers seem to have a bit of chemistry going this year. They should continue this run against the Magic and beat them in this series. And they might make a run in the East. I mean, I wouldn't completely discount them. They have Mobley there as a backup to Allen off the boards. I mean, they're a pretty good team, the Cavaliers.
Yeah, I would agree that the Cleveland Cavaliers are pretty good, but you can't not notice now what Allen is doing. Like you said, I agree that he's doing all the dirty work, groundwork, and that's one of the biggest reasons they won. But hopefully the knee holds up for Donovan Mitchell. That was my biggest concern, injury. Early on before playoff started. I thought about injuries to several key players, that was likely playoff bomb. We're talking about Joel Embiid, Carl Anthony Towns, and Donovan Mitchell. So I'm just concerned about that. But I think Cleveland will likely win this series.
James, a year ago, a lot of people expected Donovan Mitchell to be a Knick. It didn't work out. And imagine had Donovan Mitchell gone to the Knicks after all. Chances are they would have gotten Jalen Brunson, or maybe they would have. And can you imagine what that Knicks backcourt would have been like?
It'd be different. I think you're going to have someone that's scoring a lot more points, but I don't know. Maybe I don't know. It's hard to really say because ultimately I attribute the success of that team to coaching. Of New York. It's just really impressive what he's done with the lack of some people that are not there, like Randall. And so I'm impressed what's going on there now. So I would say maybe if Donovan was there, they'd still be pretty good.
I don't know why, but it sounds really staticky with James and
is that me?
Jack there. I don't know if it's because of what's going on with the we're coming through on this. I don't know why.
I hear it too.
I can hear it pretty good. Let's welcome in Keith Engle from TGI Sports. Good morning, Keith. How you doing?
Good morning, guys. How are you?
Wow. All right. So, bear with us out there. Hopefully that static stops in the background there.
Well, I don't think it's me, Mac, but I'll get off if you want.
I actually only hear it when Mac speaks, to be honest with you.
Really?
I hear it too.
So, anyway,
notice Mac doesn't say it might be coming from his end. He looks to place the blame elsewhere.
Maybe because I'm on the phone. I don't know.
That might be.
So, Keith, you came in at time as the New York Knicks beat up the 76ers 111-104. And I told Jack this last time we were on together. The Knicks just play team basketball. You really, Brunson only had 22 points yesterday. And, they're deep on the bench, and that's what gives them, to me, the edge over almost any team except for maybe the Celtics. And let's see, Brunson and Hart both had 22. Hart had 13 rebounds. He's like the engine of that team. McBride has a good game. It's just they seem to have. I think, Keith, what happened was it was a blessing that all those guys got injured, and these guys got major minutes. So now they're used to playing against starters. So we bring in any of these guys, including the backup there, our backup center comes in, grabs 12 rebounds. So these guys are used to playing against the better teams in the league and winning, and then now it's showing up in the playoffs.
Oh, I agree. And Bogdanovich has started to play well. He didn't play well when he first got traded. The last few weeks of the regular season, he played very well. Brunson he got 22 points, but he was like 8 for 28 or something from the shooting. That was terrible. And the bench scored 42 points, as you mentioned, Matt. So listen, for the Knicks to get away with this win with that type of game from Brunson is huge. And I agree 100% that this team has played as a team. And this was indicative of that. And Thibodeau does a great job. He only went 3 deep into that bench. He didn't go very deep. But the guys he had to rely on played very well.
Yes, that's true. Is that better, guys? Can you hear me better now?
Just a tad.
It's awful. It's awful, Mac. I don't know why anyone would want to watch this show with that static.
Well, there you go. So you pissed him off now.
There we go.
Maybe I should let you guys go ahead and I'll get off because it's terrible to listen to. So anyway, you guys go ahead and I'll get off for now and maybe try to come back in later. Jack, go ahead and take control here.
Sure. Okay, guys. Are you on, Mac? You're staying on. Okay.
I'm pretty sure Jack sabotaged.
Yeah, let's hear. Do we have the static?
I hear.
It sounds like it was Mac after all.
Yeah,
but,
I think so. I thought it was when I popped in. So
yeah,
And he would have got away with it too if it wasn't for us pesky kids.
Let me ask you guys, are you a bit disappointed in the Phoenix Suns? When they got Kevin Durant, they made the big deal. The whole idea behind it was to give them a great chance to win the NBA championship, and they never seem to have gotten closer since they've gotten Durant. They never seem to be a powerful team. And you'd think with Durant and Devin Booker, that would be conceivably the best 1-2 punch in the NBA. But something with the chemistry with that team and adding Bradley Beal, it just hasn't worked out.
The big three doesn't seem to work the way that it did for a while, right? Bringing Beal in here changed bringing Durant in changed the chemistry. They had a really good thing going, and I realized that Chris Paul was on the downside of his career, and it was probably time to move on. But I think the way they rebuilt this team, and don't discount the fact that Monty Williams when he was with Phoenix, he was one of the best coaches in the league, and he had something to do, I think, with that team chemistry that they had. They didn't win any championships, but they were a better playoff team than this team that they put together. That's for sure.
But guys, when you look at the numbers that Kevin Durant puts up, he puts up good numbers. So where is it lacking? That's what I want to know. I'm
going to say the history. If you don't mind, Keith, I can chime in a little bit.
You're good. No, you're good.
Yeah, I would say going into the history of Kevin Durant, the one defining factor is he's an unbelievable scorer. He's an unbelievable player, but the team lacks leadership. If you notice that when he played with the Warriors, there was a definitive alpha, and that was Steph Curry. There was somebody there. When he played with the Nets, there was no guy there. There was nobody that can say that you can keep everybody in line, keep everybody together.
Kyrie Irving, James. Kyrie Irving was the leader, like it or not. He was a bad leader, but he was the leader.
He was exactly. There you go.
James, going back before that at OKC, it was split down the middle with him and Russell Westbrook. He didn't take charge. And it's obvious now that Durant was a better player than Westbrook. We didn't know it at the time. It was kind of could go either way at the time. But Durant should have put his stamp on things at some point, and he's not really doing it now. It's as if he's scared to step on Devin Booker's toes and take charge. And it's that way with some guys. Some guys have that leadership ability, and some guys are just great players. It's not a negative on Durant necessarily. It's just personality.
Agreed. Another thing, their bench, we just talked about the Knicks bench. The Suns bench has been atrocious. It certainly was yesterday. Only 3 guys scored off the bench, and I think a total of about 18 points. You got to have more production from your bench, and they went pretty deep. They didn't play just 3 guys. They played about 15, I think.
Right.
So, again, they just can't find the right combination to get them over the top.
And the Knicks yesterday, big win, a win they needed a little more than the Sixers. I can't see a way back for the Sixers in this series, not with Joel Embiid hobbling around. He's playing hurt.
Yeah.
He's going to see it through. But you saw towards the end of the game, Embiid trying to take so much of the load upon himself. And physically, he was on the par. And it's not going to get better in this series.
No, this is going to be a big win. I get it. It's a first round matchup, but for the Knicks to get by the 76ers, who have been a power in the East for quite a few years now, no matter that this is a down year and Embiid's hurt and whatever, I'm sure, Jamie will have a lot of excuses when he comes on, but I'll leave that for him. It's still going to be a big lift for these Knicks fans, because they haven't been able to get by this type of team in the playoffs in the Thibodeau era. The Heat would knock them out. Even the Hawks knocked them out one year. But still, this is the type of matchup that they really need to win. And I think they're in a great position to do it. Obviously, Mitchell Robinson, who's I've never been a huge fan of, played great, as you guys mentioned earlier, off the bench. And he's accepting his role, at least for public appearances anyway, which he's had a little trouble doing in the past. So I just love what's going on with this Knicks right now.
Well, I think his role, Robinson, was to mix it up with Embiid. Bang with them, get physical with them, just give him a hard time. Even if he got outplayed by a bit, it would take a toll on Embiid. Someone's got to step up for the Sixers if Embiid's playing hurt the way he is. Can Maxey finally turn into somewhat of a breakout star? We know how good he is. He teases us that he's on the verge of maybe being one of the better players in the NBA, but he's never gotten there. Could this be a series where Maxey shows he's a legitimate star?
Go ahead, James.
I think he's going to have to, because at this situation where you're looking at Embiid, he's gimpy, man. He's definitely having some issues with and he's doing the best he can. He's a warrior. I think he's very tough, man, but he's limited. So Maxey and Tobias Harris are really going to have to step up if they're going to at least make this a matchup to some degree. But I just don't see them doing it. I think they're going to go I give them one game. And I think the rest are just the Knicks. The Knicks are too dominant for them defensively.
Now,
I agree with that too. By the way, Maxey and Harris have got to step up. This team's in trouble. I mean, I like Kevin Lowry. He's been a fine player, but when he's he may be your third option if Embiid is going to, in fact, if he has to sit at all during this series. That's not a good situation at this point in his career.
Keith, you're on Knick Report on this show. What is the ceiling for the Knicks in the playoffs, logically speaking? What point would it be a disappointment this season if they lose this series to the Sixers and they come back? Does it undo a lot of the good that they did, second seed? Does it turn the season into a disappointment if after winning game one they somehow lose this series?
No, absolutely. I think getting to 50 wins and getting the second seed, losing this series would be a definite downer for the franchise and the fan base. I really think anything short of the conference finals may be a disappointment for this fan base. And I'll give them gonna right now. Again, I don't like to be a homer, but I will give them a fighting chance against the Celtics. They'll need a superhuman effort from Brunson and maybe somebody else, but there's enough talent on this team, and as we saw yesterday, there's enough guys to, if they rise to the occasion like they did yesterday, they can give the Celtics a run. But first, we got to get there, right? So. I'm excited about what could happen here.
The answer is no, but hypothetically, if the Knicks should make a deep playoff run, let's say they get to the NBA Finals, is Randall definitely 100% out?
Yes, I believe.
Yeah, any path where he could come back at some point?
Not that I'm aware of.
Right. He's out for the season.
Okay, there was another game last night. The Lakers losing game 1 to the Denver Nuggets. They got swept by the defending champion Nuggets last year. Is there a way back for the Lakers in this series?
They got their banner this year. I think they're happy with that tournament banner and
play-in banner. Yeah,
it's just I know not the play-in banner, but the mid-season.
Right, the mid-season tournament.
Yeah. Things seem to turn around for that team. Then I mean, they went right in the toilet and they rebounded a little near the end of the season, but they're again not a well put together team chemistry wise. You rely too much on the oldest guy in the team. He's the best player, I get it, and Anthony Davis is one step away every day of going out, and I don't see this team rebounding. The Nuggets are still the best team in the West by
they played good games yesterday, Anthony Davis and LeBron James, and Austin Reeves was okay. D'Angelo Russell played a terrible game. So for the Lakers to win, does everyone absolutely have to be in sync? Like no margin of error. They have to really all be playing well. You could say that with just about any team, but logically speaking, the very good teams like the Celtics, one particular player could have a bad game and the rest could pick up the slack.
Like the Knicks with Brunson yesterday. I mean, he had 22 points. He had to shoot 26 times to get those 22 points. That was as bad as he's played for the Knicks all year. And the Lakers aren't deep enough to pick up anybody. And D'Angelo Russell obviously isn't your number 1 or 2 or even 3 option probably on that offense. But still, you can't have a guy going out there shooting 6 for 20 in 41 minutes. So, I mean, I don't see any way the Lakers are good. They may get swept in this series, quite frankly. Maybe we'll give them a game like James will give the Sixers, but maybe they'll win a game at home. The Nuggets, they can't match up with the Nuggets man for man.
I really picked the Lakers to win this series because I just thought that there'd be some differences not having Brown this year for the Nuggets as if they had him last year, and that was the guy that was very defensively sound against the Lakers. But now, I mean, man, it just seemed they put somebody else in their place. I mean, this guy.
You gave up James after one game. You picked the Lakers to upset Denver. They lose one game, and you're throwing the towel in.
No, this is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is they need guard play. The 2 guards just wet the bed. Yeah. I mean, 1 for 9, you can't do that. I still have the Lakers to win the series, but you got to. I mean, LeBron said like you said, very little margin for error. That's terrible. That's 1 for 9 from 3, man. He just kept shooting. I just like wow, and he did this is the same thing he did last series. He was just not good, and he was great in the regular season. I mean, we need to see that from him, but he's just wow. That's pretty terrible.
They need to be perfect to upset this team because the Nuggets are better at every position except maybe LeBron on the floor. Every position on the floor, they're better. Jokic's better than Davis. He just is. He's the best player in the NBA.
Are we underrating Jokic, guys? Are we underrating him? When we talk about the greatest NBA players of all time, I know he's still active, but that doesn't stop us from rating some other players who are still active. Obviously, LeBron, Kevin Durant, to an extent. And I hear, some people saying, well, Durant is maybe one of the top 10 players in the NBA. Wouldn't you place Jokic ahead of him? I mean, if you're looking at the top 10, I mean, if they were both 22 years old and you knew how good they're going to be and you could have Jokic or Durant, I mean, would you really take Durant over Jokic?
I'm not sure
Not
that.
for everything he can do. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with James. I don't. I would take Jokic every time. Every time he gets lost playing in Denver. I think that's as far as his uh, popularity or where he gets ranked in these types of things. I think his game gets lost because he's playing in Denver, which is a great media center, right? And people are just learning now what a great player he is after winning the championship last year. This team might repeat.
No, Miami's going to be playing the Boston Celtics. They beat them in the playoffs last year. Easy to forget, and they went to the finals. Any chance of a repeat this year?
Yeah, I'll leave this one for you to start, James.
Not without Jimmy Butler. I mean, you have a puncher's chance with Jimmy Butler and Terry Rozier, your backup. I mean, no, it's just that they're done. And I love Bam Adebayo, and I think he's tough, man, in the middle, but not enough. There's just too many weapons, too many. That's like David and Goliath. It happened, but it's not going to happen here. They're done.
Yeah.
One.
I like Bam's game too, but without Jimmy Butler basically put this team on his back last year during the playoffs. And when he played badly, they lost games. So without him, I don't see how they're going to win.
Of all the players in the NBA, is Jimmy Butler the one that waits the most for the playoffs? You get the feeling he's just coasting in the regular season, knowing what's at stake in the playoffs, and he turns it up a notch during the playoffs.
Something to that, yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of guys that kind of do that because it's all jockeying for position in the regular season. Too many playoff teams in my mind, but yes, I think he does wait for that, and he's able to turn it on. Some guys can't turn it on when it's time to do that. So I respect him for being able to do it, and I don't think it's that he jakes it or anything in the regular season, but he's got a different intensity when it comes to playoff basketball.
We were talking about the Phoenix Suns chemistry. The Milwaukee Bucks, when they got Damian Lillard, they were made the favorite to win the NBA title by a lot of people. And they did have certain chemistry problems during the year. Are we going to sleep on them? I mean, come playoff time, if Giannis shows up healthy, Damian Lillard's at the top of his game. Doc Rivers, who I could get Pags going with if he comes on the show. I mean, is there something there where they could make a serious run at coming out of the East?
I wouldn't sleep on them, yes, because they won a championship not that long ago. They've got a great roster. They've had some problems since Doc came in there, and it looked like they'd straighten them out. If you remember around the All-Star game, they lost like 10 games in a row or whatever it was. And he really ripped into the team, and they seem to have recovered, but then they finished the season, I think, losing 3 out of the last 10 games. So that's not great momentum coming in, but anytime you got a guy like Giannis, you're going to have a chance to win games and series. So I wouldn't discount them. I just don't think they're going to get it done. And they miss guys. We talked about Drew Holiday a few weeks ago and what he's meant to the Celtics. He meant that to this Bucks team as well, and they missed that a lot, I think, on this team. That was one of the championship team. Everybody knew their role. And superstars don't necessarily win, not a group of superstars anymore. And maybe Lillard was not the best choice to change that chemistry there.
Well, do these franchises get caught up in getting a superstar? You just make the great point, Keith. Drew Holiday. He's not a glamour player. He's just a heck of a defender, the type of guy you need to win championships, but he's not that big name that you want to get. Like we talked about the Suns getting Kevin Durant. They're getting the big name. The Bucks, they're getting Damian Lillard. They're getting the big superstar name. Are these franchises too intrigued with getting players like that at the expense of chemistry?
Potentially, but let's go back to Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday is an excellent role player. He's like a premium role player. Two-way role player. He can shoot the ball lights out, and he can play top-notch defense. And he's getting older per se, but I would say that a lot of teams still, marquee names still are attractive. I'm not gonna lie. If I'm a GM and if Kevin Durant was available, I'd potentially want to take him too. But just because he can still shoot and the name is still there, and I mean, and he's an anomaly type of player. You're looking at someone that plays small forward, but he's 6'10", 70-inch wingspan. No one could really defend him. You know, it's just hard to stop a guy that can shoot 3-pointers the way he does because he's just too big. But so, yeah, I would want him, even if I'm a GM. But at the same time, the big three idea should be rethought, because now you're looking at teams. I would say 2 stars and a heck of a lot of great role players and a bench would be ideal. Because, I mean, ultimately, when you think about Boston, that's what you got. You got 2 stars. I wouldn't say 2 superstars. I would say 2 stars and a great bench.
And that was the model that was really the model the Bucks used when they won a few years back, was that exact model that the Celtics are playing right now.
But guys, teams that get these star players in the NBA, they treat draft choices so much different from the NFL. Take the case of Rudy Gobert. What did they give him? A total of 9 players, and what did they give? Like 5 first-round draft picks or something?
4, yeah.
4. That's ludicrous. Imagine, and Gobert's not a superstar. He's a heck of a good player. Can you imagine in the NFL for a guy like a Kirk Cousins, if he was there and you could trade for him, you get 4 number 1s and a couple of other starters and some other players? It's ludicrous, but this might actually work out for the Timberwolves when all is said and done. If the Timberwolves have never been to an NBA Finals, if they get to the Finals just one time, can you tell me the deal wasn't worth it?
No, this team's one of the biggest surprises to me of anybody. I know they stumbled a little bit near the end of the season and lost the division title, but it's certainly worth it in Minnesota if they go out and win 1 championship in Minnesota. Someplace else that may not be true, but Minnesota, it is true.
Can you guys tell me about Gilgeous-Alexander? He slips under the radar. No one ever talks about him, and all I see him play great game after great game. You look at the box score. How come his name is never mentioned?
Because he's in OKC.
Oh, no, like Durant and Westbrook with OKC, and we heard about him all the time. Come on.
Yeah, but those guys were premium players coming out of college, too. So, I mean, you know who those guys were before. You don't really know who this guy, Gilgeous-Alexander, is, and he's in OKC, so it's a small marketplace. So you're not really getting a lot of television. But if he continues to play the way he plays now, he'll be known now because he's in the playoffs. So, but yeah, I think that's the main thing is someone like Durant. You knew, and Russell or Westbrook, you knew who these guys were before they got there.
Yeah, I think that's the key. He wasn't known beforehand in any great capacity, and he's not going to be ignored for long if he keeps putting up the numbers that he's put up this year. That's for sure, because he's doing it all. He's LeBron light right now when you look at his numbers across the board.
They're a young team that's rising, an intriguing team in these playoffs are the LA Clippers because they're built to win now. They're built to win now, but they're not one of the favorites to come out of the West. And what do you do at the end of the season with James Harden, who's a free agent? You give him the big money long term. I wouldn't personally. I wouldn't trust James Harden at this point in his career. Or do you risk losing him? Because Kawhi Leonard, he signed an extension based on being happy with the way things are going. He likes living in LA. Let's face it. But between their big three, Leonard, Paul George, Harden, are they a little long in the tooth?
I'm going to say yes, and I got to jump right after this, but I'm going to say yes. And the Clippers, they've had talent in the past and had great expectations in the past, and they never ever live up to them ever. I mean, they rarely get out of the first round, even with some very good, talented teams. So I don't expect them to go far this year either myself.
But a lot of intriguing storylines. Keith, if you have to go, I hate to lose you now. I didn't know what your time frame was. You would have gone a little on the NFL draft, but we'll get you on one of the shows before that.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see you Thursday night anyway. Wednesday night too, and Thursday. So
Keith,
we'll
but
See you,
the
Keith.
Patriot news isn't as exciting today as it was a few years back, though.
we can make it exciting. See you, Jack. See you, James. Have a great day.
You too, Keith. See you.
James, now what about your New Orleans Pelicans? Okay, yeah, I mean, I
Well,
guess you're a little proud. Zion goes out with an injury, yet they win that game against Sacramento to advance. Kudos to the Pelicans.
so on the show Friday with Sonia and the fellas, I picked myself and Anthony picked both because of Zion's injury, picked them to lose the play-in. But I think it all. I mean, what I did say, the caveat was how well that Brandon Ingram would be, and how good would be off the injury. Well, he gave him 24 points. He led the game with 24 points. I just don't see him. I think he's streaky, and the absence of Zion, I just don't see them being a formidable matchup against the number one team.
Is there any chance of Zion coming back at any point in the playoffs if they advance? I mean, what?
Well, yeah, I mean,
What's his
if
timetable?
he were to advance, yes, I think he's out for like 3 or 4 weeks. But hamstring that's a serious injury to for someone that's an explosive player like him. There's a huge risk of re-injuring or re-aggravating a hamstring. But there's a possibility that he comes back if they were able to get past this team. But I just don't see them getting past that team. And I love the Pelicans.
This year was redemption for Zion Williamson to a degree. The knock on him was he's not always in top shape. That's why he gets hurt. Now, he got hurt. I don't think it has anything to do with his condition. It doesn't show he's injury prone, one hamstring at the end, because he did log a lot of minutes for a lot of games. He stayed healthy and he played very, very well. But when you consider what Zion was coming out of college, he was considered by many to be a generational talent, kind of the way Wembanyama is now. But Wembanyama is really trending towards being a generational talent. If Victor Wembanyama on the Spurs, if he's only the 5th best player in the NBA a few years from now, we'll be a little disappointed. We'll be actually a tiny bit disappointed because he's so good. He's trending towards the very best. Or if someone's going to challenge him, it's going to have to be a Kobe Bryant type for supremacy. But I remember Jalen Rose said about Zion Williamson. He said he might not be any more than a perennial all-star. Now, that's pretty good, a perennial all-star. Is that the type of player you foresee him as being going forward, just an all-star caliber player, but not a dominant player?
I would have to attribute that answer to availability. If he's available, I project him to be a superstar, an all NBA player. If he's not available, then yes, I mean, I would have to say that he's just more or less an all-star player, all-star type player, because only because of availability, not because of ability. It's just availability. I mean, because you saw that game between the Lakers. If he doesn't go out in that last 3 minutes, there's potential. We're talking about the Lakers almost squeaking by, having to play the Kings, because they potentially win that game with him. I mean, 40-11. I mean, no one could stop him in the middle. He's just dominant.
Okay, James, let's make believe for 1 second. You're the GM of the Pelicans. I'm the owner. I call you into the office, and I say, I think we should trade Zion Williamson while his stock is high. It's never going to get higher than this. We might be able to make a blockbuster deal. Do you seriously consider making the deal? Because he could get hurt going forward, and he could have a checkered career with the Pelicans going forward. But right now, he's shown what he could do.
I guess it all depends on what I can get for him. Obviously, that's something you consider because of,
really,
like you said,
that type deal.
Right. The only problem is there's no guarantee any of those picks pan out, and you give away a potentially a generation.
Never a guarantee. You make good draft selections. There's never a guarantee on any of that.
For sure. So, I mean, why would you give up your asset like that if you're the guy? I mean, he's been injured, but I think I would rather take the chance of him getting better, continually getting better versus taking for because what happened with the Jazz when they got those picks? Have they panned out in any way? They haven't panned out at all.
The Anthony Davis deal.
Yeah, that's about it. That's about it.
Most people expect the Celtics to come out of the East. If the Celtics are facing the Nuggets or the Timberwolves in the NBA Finals, or the Celtics, do they enjoy a level of favoritism at all, especially against Denver, the defending champions?
Of course.
Is that an even money series, or the Celtics should be favored no matter who they face in the West?
The Celtics should be. If you're the number one team with that many regular season wins, and someone said Celtics playoff pride, I would say even that, even having the storied history of being the great Celtics in 70s, the 80s, and 60s, excuse me, going back all the way back. I just but going off of evidence and what we have now, just if we had to go off evidence, they should be the favorite no matter what. I don't see anybody beating them.
When we talk NBA and we talk about America's team, I know the Cowboys had that phrase in football. I don't know whether they should still have it or not, but the Lakers are more or less like America's team. When it comes to the NBA, you got LeBron there, and he's the face of the NBA still. He might not be the best player, but he's one of the best players. And he's the face of the NBA there. You kind of wonder, when the Lakers drafted a few years ago, they got caught in the glamour. They drafted Ball instead of Jason Tatum. A lot of people thought they should have drafted Jason Tatum, that he would be a better player. But how can you not go Hollywood and draft Ball with his father's big mouth and this and that? And Magic Johnson was kind of at the helm, and he was more like Ball, a Magic Johnson type player than Tatum was. Can you imagine if the Lakers went against the grain and showed the guts and drafted Tatum where they be? And things like that have happened. Remember when Steve Alford, everyone thought, the Pacers should draft him. They showed guts and they drafted Reggie Miller. And imagine had they not drafted Reggie Miller, and that was a franchise changer. Historically for the Pacers, that's the greatest player in Pacer history, Reggie Miller, that they drafted. But everyone wanted in Indiana for them to draft Steve Alford, the hometown boy. And we've seen it happen, in football, when Mario Williams was drafted instead of, Reggie Bush in the draft. Everyone thought Reggie Bush was the glamour player, but Mario Williams, defensive tackle, turned out to be a better pro. But can you imagine had the Lakers shown that type of guts? I mean, is that a lesson to be learned? Shut the public out completely. Don't even consider what the fans want. Don't even consider what the media want. Just make an unemotional, hardcore decision.
You were talking about Ball? You meant Ball?
Yeah, when they drafted him over Tatum, 1-2.
Yeah, for sure. And we can see how that panned out, because ultimately, before he even got hurt, he got traded, and now he looks to be someone who's just, unfortunately, out of the league at some point because of terrible injury. I mean, just erosion of his knee. Hindsight is always 20/20. If you look at it, because who's to say that Tatum is a great player with the Lakers? I mean, he had some great coaching with the Celtics as well. And I would say that, I'm not saying that he wouldn't be great there, but I would just say that, I mean, I haven't seen.
Are you kidding me, James, and Anthony Davis and LeBron James? Are you kidding me? I mean, Jason Tatum would be outstanding.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with them. But as far as coaching, I mean, I don't know. I just think, again, I don't know. I haven't seen.
What's the great coaching on the Celtics? Why is it so great and not in LA? LA did win a championship a few years ago, and Tatum would have been there for that.
Yeah,
And maybe Tyronn Lue would have gone to the Lakers, coached them there, in that situation.
potentially. Yeah, potentially. I just think the Celtics, going back to that, I think they're the team to beat. I don't think, and having Tatum as their leader is as a team, their team, they're just like you mentioned the Knicks. The Celtics are a team. They're a complete team that I don't see anybody beating them. I don't see anybody beating them, including the Nuggets. If they
But
get,
I'm looking at the comments. We have a lot of good mornings here. I see the Carolina Pantherettes, a good morning. So I think that's a good lead into the NFL draft. I know you're looking forward to that. Okay, that's one of your favorites. And number one pick, there doesn't seem to be much drama with Caleb Williams going to the Chicago Bears. Is there any tiny scenario you could see of a blockbuster deal where somehow the Bears move off him? I think it would have happened by now because the team going second, the Washington Commanders, offered the flip-flop 1 and 2 and add in 2 number 1 draft choices. Now, if the Bears, like Drake May or Jaden Daniels, they would have, gone in that direction. Or they go number 9 if by some tiny chance they like the Bo Nix, who they think would have been there at number 9, they would have made the deal. But the Bears should they have still held on to Justin Fields a little longer to give them a little more leverage?
I'll be honest with you. That was my thought early on before he was traded. I'm thinking if I guess this is probably why I'm not a GM, but if I'm a GM, I prefer to keep Justin Fields to at least give him the chance, especially with the amount of draft picks that I have, all the ammunition that I have. I could build around him because ultimately he is a really good talent, but he just never really got an opportunity to prove it because their O-line was terrible. There's some things, obviously, was he flawed? I mean, most rookie players are flawed. I mean, he's not a rookie anymore, but he never really had a good, stable let's be frank here. Chicago has never been really a good organization to say that they're cultivating a quarterback. There's been no history to show you that they were cultivating any type of quarterback. So
they're the worst. Historically, who is the greatest quarterback in bad history? Jim McMahon.
Jim McMahon. That's it, right? That's in a lot.
McMahon was good. He was good. I give him his due. But to call him the greatest. Yeah, to call him exactly. But James, you can never be a GM. I could see that. You're not thinking straight dollar-wise. Because let me explain why. Justin Fields has been in the league 3 years. If they held on to him this year, at the end of this season, his rookie contract's up. You either got to give him the big money or not. Okay? Otherwise, you could lose him. If he turns into an elite player, you're gambling giving him the big money. And that's why you kind of have to move on from him when the rookie deal is up. Or they could make the mistake the Giants made with Daniel Jones in a way. They gave Daniel Jones some big money based on one good year. And what happens if Justin Fields had a Daniel Jones type year, the one good year? Is he really your guy going forward? If you've had him for 3 years, James, and he hasn't convinced you he's your guy going forward, if the jury is still out, why not move on if you have a better prospect out of college? And Caleb Williams is going to now be on the rookie deal for the next few years. You won't have to pay him the big money. He fits in under the cap.
But if you don't rebuild your offensive line, you're potentially doing the same thing to the next player, and you're just kicking the can down the road by getting a potentially talented quarterback killed by not being able to keep him upright with a mediocre or subpar offensive line. So, and with a draft like this, there's 10, 15 of of 10 to 15 of the 32 draft picks can be offensive line. That's just how
Number
talented
9.
he is.
Chicago Bears go number 9. They could draft an offensive lineman that's going to be there for them if they really want it. So they kind of dress it with an elite college player, if they
True,
want.
true. But I mean, if I'm a GM, I take Marvin Harrison number 1. I take Marvin Harrison number 1 and get an offensive lineman at number 9.
Wait. If you can't take Marvin Harrison number 1 now, they need a quarterback, the Bears.
No, I'm saying
They held on to Justin
if we're
Fields.
going back to keep it, if I had Justin Fields, I would take Marvin Harrison number 1 and get an offensive lineman for him because you're steadily building for him. But like you said, they couldn't have seen him as their future because they got rid of him. I agree with that point. That's not what they wanted. They didn't want him clearly.
And it's interesting that Commanders would offer to flip-flop and add in 2 number 1 draft choices to the Bears, and they're going number 2. And that's a red flag that they see a big growth in talent between Caleb Williams and the rest of the quarterback field. They don't think that, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, or one of the other guys is nearly as good if they're willing to give up to an extra couple of draft picks.
So I think Drake May and Jaden Daniels are not the same player. They're 2 different style players here. And if I'm number 2 and I'm the Washington Commanders, do they have a bridge quarterback there now?
The bridge quarterback, not Marcus Mariota, but he's not my idea of a bridge quarterback.
No, exactly. So do you take a quarterback at number 2, or do you try to?
Definitely taking a quarterback at number 2. The Commanders, without question. It's just, do they like Drake May or Jaden Daniels? They've been linked to both of them. I get the feeling it's going to be Drake May, but some people are down on Drake May. They think he might actually slip. It might be there at number 6 if the Giants somehow want a quarterback. If one player is going to fall in the draft, one player that we think is going to be drafted highly, I just got a hunch it's going to be Drake May. Remember past drafts with Brady Quinn years ago? He was projected to go very high. He was sitting in that room waiting to be called out in the NFL draft, and they were never calling the poor guy's name. Imagine having all that company sitting there, and then you're there all alone in the green room, just hanging out. It was an embarrassment for the NFL. Like 3 years ago, remember Malik Willis on the Titans? A lot of people were projecting him to go in the first round. He went in the 3rd round.
Geno Smith,
I don't think it was a shocker. He went 30th, I think, overall, or something like that, or early in
he was in second. He was in a second, yeah.
Yeah, but I think by the time the draft came, he wasn't as elite as he was a little earlier in the draft, where some people thought he could even possibly be the top guy. I mean, you never know where certain, these glamour quarterbacks are going to fall, because it's one thing us, in the media, we have a vision of this guy, how he is, but the scouts have such a good read on him, and they can bypass the hype.
Right.
Okay? And if one of these quarterbacks turns out to be outstanding, like a Dan Marino, who went 30th to the Dolphins, everyone is fooled normally on a guy like that, but it's a question of need too. J.J. McCarthy, he's the intriguing guy in this draft. I don't think he's that good, James.
That's what I was going to ask. That was my next question. Do you not think there's a lot of hype around that kid?
Well, there's tremendous hype around them, in large part because Michigan is the national champions. He was the leader. He has leadership skills. Okay, great. You could have great leadership skills even as an NFL quarterback, but be a lousy NFL quarterback. not have a good arm, not necessarily make good decisions, but you run the huddle, you try to rally the guys. J.J. McCarthy has good leadership skills. He has Jim Harper, his college coach, talking him up as the best player in the draft. People are intrigued, and they're thinking, well, maybe he didn't throw the ball downfield that effectively in college because he wasn't asked to. That he can do all these things, but he didn't have to do it. But he can do it as an NFL player. I don't see him as being any type of elite quarterback. But will a team move up to take him? That's going to be, he's the X factor in this draft. Or might he go at number 2 and number 3? Might the Washington Commanders and New England Patriots figure this is the guy we're going to strike with, you know? And he becomes a second or third round selection. I understand the theory, James. I don't know if you believe teams should draft according to need or best available. To me, virtually all the time, it should be best available player. When you start drafting for need, you run into trouble. But the quarterback is the X factor. Like if I'm the Patriots, and if Marvin Harrison is there for me, which he will be at number 3, do I bypass him and take one of the other quarterbacks who turns out to be mediocre as opposed to a sure thing?
I wouldn't go with the need. I'd go with a sure thing, and then you try to figure it out later. I mean, if Marvin Harrison Jr. is available to me, like Keith is always talking about, he thinks that at number 3 that the Pats should take Marvin Harrison Jr. I agree. I would rather take him. And I mean, obviously, you're going to need somebody to throw it to him, but you can figure that out down the road. I think someone like, even if you draft someone like Bo Nix later, or if you get someone like Michael Penix Jr., whom I think is underrated, I think he's underprojected. And I think someone's probably going to move up or take him in the first round. And I would take the sure thing of someone who's projected probably to give you a plug and play for 10, start immediately and potentially give you all pro years. So I would rather go with but again, I think the talent is there for both Jaden Daniel and Drake May. They just may not be suited for number 2 and number 3 overall.
Well, I say it's going to take Drake May a little longer for some reason, certain decision making. Jaden Daniels was complaining he didn't like a certain workout meeting with the Commanders. He was kind of puzzled by what went on. So that's a red flag. If there's going to be one shocker during the NFL draft, an absolute shocker that's going to leave you absolutely flabbergasted, bowl you over. And you're hearing it from me first. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I can see it happening as crazy as this seems. And this is insane, but I can see it actually happening. Jim Harper goes number 5 with the Chargers. J.J. McCarthy, if he's available then, and Jim Harper doesn't know for sure, I can actually see this happening. Him right before the clock trading Justin Herbert. If he knows he could draft J.J. McCarthy, his guy at Michigan at number 5, and trade Herbert for something like 3 number 1s, because these other teams are going to jump on a Justin Herbert thing. They would give 3 number 1s, maybe a number 2, a number 3. They would give a whole pile of draft picks to the Chargers. And if Jim Harper really believes what he's been telling us, that J.J. McCarthy's the best player in the draft, why not take his own guy? Justin Herbert had a down year last year, James. No one talks about that. He had a down year.
Yeah, but Los Angeles is not a good team. They haven't been for a while. And, Dan Marino has been on some terrible Miami teams.
No, they weren't terrible. The Dolphins had good teams Marino was on. They just kept getting bumped in the playoffs. He was always on good teams, Marino.
Some were bad. I mean, I guess I would
I
say
don't know. I would have to check the record,
in
But I
the
remember he was with Coach Shula. They would win just about all the time with Coach Shula, but get
in the
bumped in the
beginning,
playoffs.
yes. In the beginning, I agree, yes. But I would say I don't think there's a. But if he's having a down year, why would I give 3 draft picks, first round draft picks for him?
Another team would, because he's Justin Herbert, who 1 year ago was considered one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL and might still be considered that. They could say the offensive line, things were out of whack, but they
Right.
know he's young and they know the great talent he is. So could I see another team conceivably doing that? I could see it, but that's my feeling. If you can get your college quarterback who you have a great relationship with and you truly believe he's going to be a star in the league, you make the deal. The reason it hasn't been made so far, because Jim Harbaugh knows, let's say they go number 5, the Commanders, Patriots, or someone trades up with Arizona who goes number 4, and they get McCarthy, and he's already traded Justin Herbert. Man, that's, he might not get his guy. And once you trade Justin Herbert, it's obvious you got to replace him at quarterback. I'm just saying, I'm not saying it's going to happen, not at all, but I can see if you're going to have a crazy deal take place that's going to be the talk of the draft, that I think is actually going to be it.
I don't know. I just think he's hyping his guy just to get his draft status up. If he's that great of a quarterback, why don't you unleash him? James English says, "Good morning. Good morning." Why don't you unleash him and allow him to throw the ball? There were great receivers there in Michigan. I understand the style of offense that they ran, but man, you have to really I didn't feel like he let him go. I think he kept him under wraps, just as the same as Ohio State did with their quarterback. And I think he's a better quarterback than that kid that was at Ohio State last season. But
now, wait. Darren Ryan is saying O'Connell. He's talking about the Vikings now and the weapons, Justin Jefferson, if Herbert went there. But Vikings they have 2 first rounders, number 11, number 23. They could give him those 2 picks and a number 1 and a number 2 next year, and a number 3 this year. Like 5 players, that whole package. But I'm going to tell you something. If you're a Minnesota Vikings fan out there, you have Sam Darnold this year. I could see Sam Darnold having a very good year for the Vikings, finally arriving not into an elite quarterback, but into a good, solid NFL quarterback. He's put in the time. He's got the arm. He still has the potential. I wouldn't necessarily give up on Sam Darnold. I know he was given his chance with the Panthers after leaving the Jets, and he didn't hold on to the starting job there. I'm aware of that. But he was with the Niners last year. Brock Purdy's backup. I think that year had to have helped him with the Niners.
That's the epitome of where the draft can sometimes go. Mr. Irrelevant versus former number 1 overall. And he's your backup. That just should tell you where Sam Darnold is in his career. He's just not good. He's not good.
You know what we should do, James? The Where Are You Now segment on these highly drafted quarterbacks. And it hasn't always turned out well. You asked me before with the Commanders, who's their bridge quarterback. I said Marcus Mariota. You started to laugh. Now, that year, Jameis Winston went number 1 in the draft. Marcus Mariota went number 2. And, of course, when the guy's drafted 1 and 2, he's got to start at some point. You're not going to draft a guy that highly without giving him the opportunity. And and Jameis Winston, he wasn't bad for years with the Buccaneers. He was a pick 6 machine, it seemed. He'd throw all these interceptions. Marcus Mariota never quite panned out. They're both backups now. Zach Wilson, number 2 overall pick, didn't pan out. Come on. That's why I hate the combines. I hate the combines because some of these guys, they move up on the charts because they're showing a certain athletic skill there. Okay,
Jamarcus Russell. Jamarcus Russell.
Jamarcus Russell, but in the case of Jamarcus Russell, reportedly the coach Lane Kifflin did not want to draft him. It was an Al Davis move. That Al Davis, said this is the guy that we want to take, and he kind of overruled, Kifflin there. But Darren Ryan says, yep, that would be perfect. 3 1s and a number 2 and a 3. Keep Donald as the backup and let Nick Mullins walk. I agree. I'm not high on Nick Mullins, who puts up 400 yards on lines. Well, he can take the Dobbs, Senek, Ruan. Listen, when Joshua Dobbs came to the Vikings and he had the one big game, I had to put up with Mac. Oh, yeah, how sensational. I said, this is a joke. I don't care if he has a couple of games. There's a reason he's been to 6-7 teams before. I don't want to hear it. I know there's certain aberrations to a small extent, like Ryan Fitzpatrick, who kicks around. But, and the aberrations to Mr. Relevant, like Brock Purdy. Every once in a while you get that. And I don't want to hear the ridiculousness. Well, Tom Brady went number 6 in the draft. You could get your quarterback there. Yeah, of course you can back into a good situation. Like the Patriots lucked out with Brady, who should have gone early in the draft. But some of these teams, the mistakes, like Trey Lance. The Niners trade a couple of number 1s to move up and get Trey Lance. And now Trey Lance is with the Cowboys, and we keep hearing this talk, well, the Cowboys should maybe draft a quarterback to get Dak Prescott's replacement. Who are they going to draft, James? I mean, maybe Michael Penix is going to be there for them at number 1. But would you draft Michael Penix, who'd have to be Dak Prescott's backup, at least initially, and not get a quality, first-round pick who could help your team immediately? And we don't know. And if you draft Michael Penix number 1, if they draft a quarterback that early, that's like either you're wasting the pick or you're already moving on from Dak Prescott. Not this year, but that's the plan.
So the problem with Dallas is that they're always in the mix for the playoffs now. And so when you're drafting at the lower pool of the first round draft talent. So you're not really projected to get a guy that you could say, this is a guy that I would want to plug in immediately and start him because he's almost a surefire thing. So, and to get a quarterback, Dak Prescott was a 4th round draft pick. And so he's a talented guy. I remember him playing at Mississippi State versus LSU. I was like, man, can we please stop this guy? Because he's very talented. He's a talented quarterback. Just continue to play with this guy because there's no potential. No potential. There's no guarantee that you're going to find another guy like this for a while. And unfortunately, these guys command a lot of money. So I don't think they're going to get rid of him. I just don't think that they could take in another quarterback. Maybe they could trade for another quarterback, but I just don't see them foreseeing them drafting a top quarterback right now when you have more need.
But they actually did, the Cowboys. People don't think about it. Last season, during the year, they gave up a 4th round draft choice for Trey Lance. So let's say this were the year. Let's make believe for 1 second, James. Let's just make believe that Trey Lance rode the bench for the Niners last year. Okay? Let's say he was 2nd string and it wasn't Donald. He was even 3rd string, but he was on the roster the whole year. And the Niners waited for the draft this year. And when they got to, the Cowboys, when they got to the 4th round, they traded their 4th round selection to the Niners for Trey Lance. People would be saying, well, they got their insurance policy for Dak Prescott. They addressed their quarterback situation because we all know Dak is going to be starting. Couldn't they use that logic?
Let me say this. Trey Lance, the 49ers gave up, 3 first rounders for him?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
3 first rounders for this kid. and they let him go. That's an indictment on the player. That's an indictment on the player. And you're playing the last pick of the draft player that you kept him. You kept him over a player that you gave up assets for. It's an indictment on the player. So whether or not Dallas elected to give up a 4th rounder for him, that's on them. I just don't see. I'm like say for instance, different position, but Jeff Okudah, the cornerback that was drafted by the Lions, number 3 overall. He got traded to the Falcons, and he's no longer playing with them now. I think he's playing in Houston. If I'm not mistaken. He's just not good. And I just think that you don't give up someone that high, that early. This kid when was he drafted? What year was this? But maybe 2 or 3 years ago.
There was nowhere to go with him. Brock Purdy established himself as the franchise quarterback, as the quarterback of the future. And to keep Trey Lance around as a backup, unless he's shown a lot of potential, he got hurt. So that kind of worked against him as well. They could have kept him. They could have kept him around, but I guess they liked Sam Darnold last year a little more as a backup, a little more experience.
Even more an indictment of Trey Lance. Exactly, that's an indictment of him. Yeah, that's just unfortunate because you put a lot of your assets and future assets into this one player, and it was just that bad to where they couldn't even make it work. For me, again, if I'm a GM, I want my return back. I want the return, but obviously he might not have been getting it in behind the scenes to not play. That's just crazy.
But quarterback is the one area you can't afford to make a bad mistake in where you're drafting. Meaning you can't pick the wrong guy very highly in the draft, or you can't bypass a better player. Sometimes there's a logical pick that has to be made when you're drafting, and people can't second guess it. In the NBA, people talk about the Portland Trail Blazers not drafting Michael Jordan, Sam Bowie instead. I thought that was a terrible mistake at the time. Awful, okay? But the Houston Rockets could have drafted Jordan, but they took Hakeem Olajuwon, and that was a logical pick, by far the logical pick. It would have been dumb to take Jordan ahead of him because Hakeem was a surefire thing, and he came from the University of Houston. That Jordan turned out to be a little better is irrelevant in a case like that. But you look at this draft, and we were talking before, when you get some of the good players, like a Marvin Harrison Jr., unless he gets injured a lot, he's a sure thing. I can't see a receiver like that not being a high impact player, potentially, the best receiver in the game. And they're going to be taking a quarterback ahead of him. Now, you mentioned Dak Prescott 4th round. The reason Dak Prescott got his opportunity was because Tony Romo got injured. The Cowboys are very happy with Tony Romo. And when Dak Prescott put together a few wins in a row, Jerry Jones says, we can't wait until Romo comes back and throws those touchdown passes. But it never happened. Dak Prescott never gave Romo a chance to see the field again. He basically sent him into retirement, The same way it happened with Tom Brady and Drew Bledsoe. But you look at historically some of these drafts. Are they bad? Are they good? The Cleveland Browns, when they took Baker Mayfield #1, I don't think that was a failure. And I'm going to tell you why, James. He played 4 years for the Browns, and the reason they moved on from Baker Mayfield, because they were able to get Deshaun Watson, who at the time they thought was one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and might still prove to be again. I'm not writing him off. But then you look at the deals after, the Jets moving up from number 6 to number 3 in the draft, and they gave up 3 second-round draft choices to move up 3 slots. I mean, that's a bold move. You're giving up a lot of depth, a lot of guys who could be on your offensive line, for example. You could draft 3 offensive linemen in the second round and get value, hypothetically. And it didn't quite work out, with Darnold. I still think he could have a good year this year. I mean, would I call him a franchise quarterback? kind of iffy, but I still think he could be a quality quarterback. But then you look later, Josh Allen in that draft went something like ninth. Josh Rosen seemed to be a bust, just never cut it. But, and now they talk with Kyler Murray, should Arizona maybe make a deal with him? It's not easy to get your guy. But sometimes, it happens. Like the Bears, we talk about the Bears not having a top quarterback ever historically. In all due respect to Jim McMahon, never having a great quarterback. They drafted Mitch Trubisky ahead of Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes. But was that really a bad pick at the time?
Yeah. Deshaun Watson, or Mitch Trubisky was not. That was just a bad decision. Just overall, I mean, no one knew who that kid was, and you can also say the same thing about Daniel Jones being taken out number 6 overall by the Giants out of Duke. So it's a crapshoot. Even with all the hard work the scouts do and all the interviews, it's still a crapshoot to get the draft. You just don't know. And again, you go like Zach Wilson taking him. Number 2 or number 3 overall?
Number 2 overall.
Number 2 overall. Most of his body of work came from the combine.
The combines, I hate it because he could throw across his darn body while he's on the run. Oh, what athleticism, what talent,
He came out of BYU.
BYU, yeah.
Yeah, so I just, unfortunately, you can get your draft stock built up really quick out of the combine just off of talent alone. I mean, there's a lot of guys right now. Now, if I had to base off of relative athletic scores or 40s at times and shuttles and bench presses, I'd rather base that off of a player that's in the trenches than a guy that's, behind center. Yes.
Well, even Aiden Hutchinson went number 2 in the draft to the Lions based on the combines. What was his name? Jaden Walker. I'm having a brain cramp. But
Trayvon Walker. Yeah.
Trayvon Walker. I'm sorry. But Aiden Hutchinson was like, I hate to use the word sure thing. There's never obviously a sure thing. You knew how good he was going to be, Aiden Hutchinson. But they got a guy who showed at the combines athleticism off the charts. And Walker's been good for Jacksonville. Don't get me wrong.
He's becoming better. Yeah, he's getting better and better.
The potential there has to be better. But even if he reaches his full potential, how much better is he going to be than Aiden Hutchinson? He's not going to be much better at any point. Yet they're willing to, they took a gamble move. Maybe it pays off at the end, maybe it doesn't. You're New Orleans Saints.
Yeah.
What are the projections for them in this draft? I mean, what do they need?
Well, they're offensive tackle, and offensive guard. They had one of the worst offensive lines the past couple of years. And I think not giving a quarterback an opportunity to succeed, that's a big part of it. And I get it. A lot of people don't like Derek Carr because, yes, and he really hadn't had the success at the team he was with. But again, I'm not saying that he's not a good quarterback. I'm not saying he's not a bad quarterback, but I am saying he played for the Raiders. So that's
Derek Carr reminds me of, this is before you were born, James, Rutgers, when they made a run to the Final Four decades ago. They had this outstanding player, Phil Sellers, who was projected to maybe even be the number 1 pick in the NBA draft. He eventually got to the NBA, never really cut it there because he was a tweener. He wasn't big enough to be a power forward in this, and he didn't quite have the ball handling, slick skills at the guard position to play point guard. It wasn't a particularly great shooter. He was just a very good player, but was hard to fit him in. And that's the feeling I get with Derek Carr. He's too good to just be a normal backup. He's too good for that, but he's not good enough to be a franchise quarterback. I know he'll give you some big games. He could string together a couple of really good games in a row. And if all cylinders are running, yeah, I mean, he could be effective, but he's not the guy I want as my franchise quarterback. I mean, this is a guy who's walking off the field and he's arguing with other players, on his team. They're arguing with him. I mean, it's a bad luck.
Yeah, I think they straightened that out and they got a little better at the end. Mind you, they played some pretty bad teams at the end, but they won 5 out of 6 games, and he had some of the best numbers of all the quarterbacks in the NFL at the end of the season. Is that going to go into the next year?
He's a numbers guy. He's a numbers guy.
I would agree with that. Yes, I mean the wins and losses is what matters in the NFL. But again, in order to try to get those wins, you got to keep your quarterback upright and healthy. And we need, and going back to what we were talking about, the Saints need offensive tackle. They're projected at number 14 overall to pick an offensive tackle, and there are quite a few names to choose from. I don't think they'll be able to get Joe Alt. Joe Alt's probably going to go in the first 5 or 6 picks.
He won't be there at 14.
Right. No, he won't be there at 14.
Let me ask you this. You have a chance, J.C. Latham for your offensive line, or possibly Brock Bowers if the Jets go for an offensive lineman. Brock Bowers, the tight end, could be in play. If Brock Bowers is there, do the Saints go for tight end, Bowers or the offensive lineman? I
think they do. Dennis Allen is quoted as saying that when they're picking at 1, they're saying some of the needs that they need besides offensive tackle is there's potential for a pass catcher. He didn't say wide receiver. He said pass catcher. So we're speaking pass catchers, wide receivers, and tight ends. So someone like Brock Bowers, who's an otherworldly talent, if he's available and you don't see the guy that you want at offensive tackle there, then of course you go with this guy. And because right now they have, I wouldn't say mediocre talent at tight end, but they have average to good tight end. So I would definitely take him if we don't have a J.C. Latham available. Like you just mentioned, J.C. Latham. With the wide zone offense that the Saints are going to be running, that guy would be great for that. Man, he's a mauler.
So you're thinking you're thinking a little bit of need too. But my Jets, they go number 10 in the draft. Okay, they're projected to take Brock Bowers or one of the offensive linemen. Let's say one of the wide receivers, the kid from Washington. How do you pronounce his name? Dunze. I have a hard time.
Sure, Rome Odunze.
Yeah, you said better than I do. He might conceivably be there. He might conceivably be there 10. So now you have Odunze, you have Brock Bowers, or one of the good offensive linemen will probably be there at number 10. I mean, we're thinking helping Aaron Rodgers on the offensive side of the ball. They could use one more offensive lineman, even though the Jets have addressed the situation during the offseason, notably with Tyron Smith from the Cowboys. And they got Mike Williams from the Chargers, who would be 1A, the second top receiver on the team next to Garrett Wilson. You give him that other great weapon in Brock Bowers, or do you give him the added protection? What do you do? I mean, it's not an easy decision. Or if you have another great wideout in Dunze, you're really in business now.
My question is, where's the Jets' next pick? Where are they projected next pick?
Third round. They don't have a second round pick. That's bad. That went to the Packers. Now, had Aaron Rodgers played 65% of the snaps last season, the Jets weren't going to have a number 1 pick. That was going to go to the Packers instead of the number 2 pick. So
I'm sorry,
Rodgers getting hurt, the only upside was, there's never upside, but the Jets kept their first round selection and they gave up their second.
If Brock Bowers is available at number 10, I'm still going to take him. But I just, yeah, it really changes my mind a little bit that the fact that you don't draft again to the third round. Because I mean, even though you got Tyron Smith, how's your guard play? Is your guard play pretty good?
No. The offensive line has been a major issue. You want to know something, James? The offensive line's a major issue of virtually every team in the NFL. It's a
Yes.
need for everyone. I mean, it's a premium type position, but can you get guys a little later on in the draft who would also be effective?
You
That's the
can.
question.
You
We
can.
talk about Jason Kelsey is retiring from the Eagles this year. He's retired. He was a sixth round selection. You could somehow get these guys. I mean, you could get good sixth rounders sometimes in any position, depending on how they pan out. But somehow the offensive linemen, I get the feeling you can get them a little late in the draft. You could maybe get them in the fourth round. Maybe not quite the elite guys, but guys who could, be effective.
For sure. You may not get plug and play guys immediately, but there are a lot of guys that are really talented. And if you understand your scheme, these guys that you can get later on with their strengths that'll plug in, but not immediately. It's someone you can get that you can groom and allow him to get reps and then to get better. But yeah, so the third round though, it's still that stinks to not have a second rounder. Maybe they bundle a few of their other picks or maybe a future second rounder and get a second rounder because the talent is going to pour into the second round. It's still a lot of good talent. That's why I was like, oh, that really stinks because you can get a really good offensive lineman in the second round.
Yeah, Darren Ryan puts down Cowboys need offensive lineman and running back. Well, Cowboys have been criticized this offseason for the lack of moves, but I think it's all obviously related to them trying to clear up cap space. They're thinking of the future signings, notably, C.D. Lamb, Micah Parsons, Dak Prescott, to sign their big name players. There's one player that's going to be there for the Cowboys, I think, late in the draft. He's my sleeper. Nate Wiggins, the cornerback from Clemson. I think he's going to be outstanding. I think he's going to be the steal of the draft. And you kind of wonder if a team who's going, like, let's say the Saints are going, what are they going, 14th, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Would they have enough guts to take a guy who'd normally be in the 20s and say, let's not fool around, let's just take him at 14, or maybe trade back just a few spots, get a third rounder, knowing they could grab that particular guy? Because to me, he's going to be a steal. To me, he's a little small. They say he's a little undersized. I think he's going to be absolutely outstanding. And I'll go a step further. My Jets took him at number 10 and did not dress the offense. You put him on the other side of Sauce Gardner there, you're going to have a couple of shutdown corners.
You'd be happy with him at 10?
I would be happy. No. I would be happy if the Jets, let's say, moved back to number 18, 19, and gained a third round draft choice on top of it, and then took Nate Wiggins.
Or gained a second.
Got the extra choice or something.
I think you can get a second rounder for your position at 10. You can get a second.
Yeah, if they could get a second rounder, move from 10 and go 20th overall in the draft, and now get a second rounder for moving back 10 spots. Yeah, I would do it, but who's going to be there for you exactly at that moment? I mean, you could always get sabotaged and another team could take Wiggins ahead of you, but I don't see it. He's projected to go in the 20s.
Yeah, he's projected to go in the 20s. You're right. I think, and a lot of it is attributed to his size. He is kind of slight in the weights. I mean, in the size, but so is Sauce Gardner too. So
yeah,
So I guess yes, and he's super fast, man. He ran like a 4.29 or something like that.
Yeah, you look at Sauce Gardner, and he does tackle guys, but you look at his build, he just doesn't seem to be the type of guy who's a physical force, that corner.
Right.
But, okay, the New York Giants, our producer Matt's Giants, they're a little intriguing at number 6. there are whispers, oh, they're going to take a quarterback. I don't think they're looking in that direction of the quarterback. I mean, I see two players standing out for well, maybe three, but Malik Neighbors looks like a perfect fit, unless the Chargers at number 5 take Malik Neighbors. Okay, so
Right.
does that mean Joe Alt goes to the Giants at number 7? They've had disappointments drafting on the offensive line before, notably with Evan Neal. But Joe Alt seems to be a real solid guy. It doesn't seem like you could go wrong there.
I don't think they're going to take a tackle though. I think they're projected either to go. I mean, they probably need an offensive line, but you probably need more interior. I'm not going to give up on Evan Neal just yet. I mean, he's only played 1 year?
No, he's been there a couple of years.
A couple of years? Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Andrew Thomas didn't do well. Andrew Thomas didn't do well the first year, but he's like a Pro Bowl player. So I mean, I don't know. I'm just not ready to give up on him when I could use a star talent like a Malik Neighbors, or if he were to fall, which I doubt.
He might. Malik Neighbors, the first 3 teams are going for first 3 picks of quarterbacks. Number 4, Arizona, is projected to take Marvin Harrison. And that means number 5, the Chargers, Malik Neighbors is there. Okay? And the question is whether they take Joe Alt or Malik Neighbors. That would seem the big question right now, if things stay stable the way, we keep hearing them. And that would leave Malik Neighbors there for the Giants. But there's this feeling going around, well, there's always a chance the Giants might make the bold move and move on from Daniel Jones. If you don't see Daniel Jones as your future quarterback, and you like J.J. McCarthy a lot, this is your opportunity at number 6. So there's a school of thought where maybe the Giants do take him, and McCarthy sits on the bench this year, and everyone knows the Giants are going to be moving on from Daniel Jones in the year.
I'm just not sold on J.J. McCarthy at that level. I mean, I'll just be honest with you. I'd sooner take Michael Penix Jr. at 6 than if I'm going to take a quarterback.
Even with his injury history?
Yeah, because now the only problem is, I mean, like he said, he sits, build that offensive line around him, but it's decent. It's not great. But yeah, with his injury history, he's been healthy the last 2 years. He's only been injured at Indiana. The last 2 years at Washington, he's been upright.
James, if you go into the past, the way teams look at injuries, the Jets never would have drafted Joe Namath, who suffered a horrific knee injury coming out of Alabama. And as a rookie, Joe Namath tells the story. As soon as he met the team doctor said, "Oh, we got to start operating on your knees." He checked his knees out in the bathroom, actually. God, it's terrible, And they never would have drafted Joe Namath. A little word about talking about the past. Who passed away yesterday at the age of 83, Roman Gabriel, you could say one of the better quarterbacks in NFL history, not one of the greatest, but certainly one of the better quarterbacks in his era. He was an outstanding quarterback, primarily with the Rams. He went to the Eagles for a few years, never quite went to a Super Bowl. He'd take his Rams on a playoff run, but they'd lose to Vince Lombardi's Green Bay Packers. They'd lose to the Purple People Eaters of the Minnesota Vikings. He could never quite get his team over the top. But Roman Gabriel was a physical presence, a big guy in that era. If I'm going to compare Roman Gabriel to any quarterback, it would be Ben Roethlisberger. You haven't heard people ever, James, I'm sure, say that Ben Roethlisberger is the best quarterback in the NFL when he was playing. We'd always say he was one of them. but somehow he never entered the Manning Brady territory. We never debated whether he was the very best, but he was always on the short list of one of the best, and that was Roman Gabriel. And Roman Gabriel was tough. I mean, he would take big hits. You'd be allowed to blindside guys during, that time. And outstanding quarterback, in his era, still holds certain, I think, team records with the Rams, and just a top of the line player who history in a certain way is forgotten.
Wow. I was just looking at the page here. He was MVP in 1969. You don't get that without being at least some level of a really good athlete or quarterback. So yeah, I'm impressed.
The only thing separating him from the Bart Stars, the Brian Griese's, he didn't get the championship. He didn't get to the Super Bowl. That's the only thing that separates the two. Had he been able to get over the top and won the Super Bowls, gotten there, he would be looked at in a whole different way, historically speaking. You can never minimize the importance of winning championships if you're a player. If I told you, James, straight out, Dan Marino is the greatest NFL quarterback of all time, you wouldn't argue with me, but you'd say, well, Jack, he never won a championship, so you can't put him there. But as a pure quarterback running your offense, if we were doing an imaginary draft, James, an imaginary draft, and you're the owner of a team, and you have we have the number first overall selection in the draft, and you're waiting to see who I draft, and I draft a young Dan Marino, knowing what he's going to be. You're not going to fire me. You'll say, I'm a little shocked. I thought you'd take Brady. I thought you'd, maybe look at Manning, this. You'd look at Patrick Mahomes, and then you go, okay. And you'd kind of move on. You wouldn't be outraged about it, put it that way. Yeah.
But damn, yeah, you gave a great example. I mean, that's one of the best quarterbacks ever to play the game. Yeah, if not the best.
Yeah, but he didn't have the championship. So when you rate him in order of the greatest of all time, Brady's usually number one based on accomplishment. Okay.
Yeah.
And maybe if Mahomes can three-peat, he's starting to get into that territory that'll give him 4 Super Bowl wins, and let's see kind of what the future holds on. Yeah, we're looking, Roman Gates from North Carolina. There were less teams in the NFL, but keep in mind with the players in the NFL there, the game was a little tougher during that time because you could cheap shot guys a lot more. You could take a quarterback, you not only can sack them, but you drive them into the ground. And if you're a player, you could say before the game that I want to put him out of the game. That was a goal. That was a goal of the players to put the quarterback out of the game. But if you mention that today, it's really not, you can't do it. I want to switch a little to boxing. It was a big fight last night. Okay, Devin Haney against Ryan Garcia at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. Big upset. Garcia beats Devin Haney. Garcia represents the modern fighter, James, okay? And that he has this big social following of all these young fans. And we're living in a different world from the old timers and myself. And I accept it, even though I'm an old timer. I accept it. It's what is. You got to move on with the times. Boxing isn't what it was. And that was brought to light to me. I was asked a couple of months ago to be a guest speaker at the Boca Raton Police Athletic League. Now, the coaches there, they had a sense of boxing history. They were good. But all the young boxers I'm talking to, I mentioned names like Thomas the Hitman Hearns, like who? Willie Pep, who? Then I mentioned Ryan Garcia, and they all like perk up. I mean, that's the world we're living in. But, so Ryan Garcia, before this fight with Devin Haney, he was saying the craziest things. And boxing isn't well regulated. It's terribly regulated. You can say whatever you want at a press conference, and there are no repercussions. Can you imagine even a Patrick Mahomes? That's the guy, or let's say a Travis Kelsey before the Super Bowl. You want him playing because he's bringing in additional viewers, okay, and all that. Could you imagine at a press conference, they start cursing out the 49ers, they start cursing out the guy's family, they start uttering racial slurs, they're doing this, they're doing that. They wouldn't be allowed to play in the Super Bowl. They would be suspended. The
Right.
sponsors would be threatening to pull out of the game as long as they're playing. People would be outraged, but in boxing, they do it. It's normal. It's normal, and they get away with it. And on top of that, they can place bets and do this and do that. But the fight itself yesterday, though, turned out to be a great fight where Garcia upset Devin Haney. Devin Haney, I thought, could be a generational talent a couple of fights ago. Then he won a close, debatable decision over Vasily Lomachenko. Lomachenko's past his prime. So I kind of went back on my feeling about Devin Haney, but I still thought he definitely beat Garcia. He beat him by a wide decision. But Garcia knocks down Haney 3 times, wins a majority decision, and now Garcia's a bona fide star. You know, he got knocked out by Tank Davis a couple of fights ago. He claimed because he had a rehydration clause. You know, I hate these excuses, James. No, I'll tell you why. With Ryan Garcia 2 fights ago, he signs a contract agreeing to get down in weight to make a certain weight, even though it's very difficult. And he's claiming all along it's now weakening him. He feels great. He says right before the fight how wonderful he feels. Then he gets knocked out. And he's claiming it was because he had to make the weight because he was so weak. I mean, come on. I mean, the excuses flow in boxing all the time.
I've never heard any older fighters, I mean, of the past. If you take a loss, you just take a loss, and if you can come back, especially if you're a premium fighter, to marquee fighter, to want a rematch. That's about all I heard. I've never heard any excuses from any fighter. Great fighters. That if you're on that level, I've never heard excuses. But now it's just like you said. And then most of these older guys were historians and gave respect to the guys before them. For a guy like these younger guys, like you say, you went and you didn't hear. I mean, these guys didn't know who Marvin Hagler or
yeah.
How do you not know those guys? If you're supposed to be learning from those guys in the past, watching film, how do you not learn? I don't understand that.
Well, you don't know sometimes with the younger fans. When Mac and myself first started the show a few years ago, Mac had on, I forgot what his name was, nice guy who was looking to start his own show, and Mac mentioned Jim Brown. And the guy said, yeah, I heard he was a pretty good running back. I got to learn more about him. It's like, oh, man. It's like, and what the heck? Yeah, Michael Jordan, he was really a top player in his day, So,
yeah, bad. That's pretty bad.
I used to joke with a buddy of mine, a writer named Jack Obermeyer, because like I was listening, there used to be a light heavyweight champion, Bob Foster, one of the most devastating punches in boxing history. And during one of his fights, the analyst said, in my opinion, Bob Foster is one of the hardest punching light heavyweights in the world today. So then we joke, say, yeah. In our opinion, Muhammad Ali is one of the best heavyweights to ever come out of Louisville, Kentucky. Something like that. It's like, I mean, how do you argue that type of logic? Who's been your favorite boxer? You had any particular one ever?
Man, outside of boxing, I like biographies. So I like the stories of people, man. And one of the most polarizing people goes way back. Being African American, we're talking about Jack Johnson.
Yeah.
His whole story outside of boxing, all just having to wait to fight for a heavyweight championship and to get there and finally and do it is just incredible. And all the different things he did. But Sugar Ray Robinson, one of my favorites. Muhammad Ali, of course. Sonny Liston. Roberto Duran. I like that whole era. Roberto Duran, Hagler, Hearns. Man, it's just a lot of great fighters. This would be favorite. Most people I know during my era love Mike Tyson. I like Mike Tyson. I'm more of a fan of him now than I was as a fighter. I just wasn't. I don't know. I thought Mike Tyson was a fast, powerful puncher, man. And he had a great system with the peekaboo moves and everything. But
Yeah.
I like Evander Holyfield better, even though he wasn't a true heavyweight. I like Evander Holyfield better in regards to his style and being able to come. What was he? A cruiserweight?
He was a cruiserweight. A lot of people think he's the greatest cruiserweight in history. Then he moved up to heavyweight and had success against the bigger guys, but he was still at a physical disadvantage. I remember sitting with Max Kellerman at one of the fights. Okay, I'm pretty friendly. Who used to be on First Take. I got to get in touch with Max to see what's going on now. He's been off the air, kind of, I guess, picking his spots. And Max was telling me Holyfield's a better fighter than Lennox Lewis. The only difference is when they fought, Lewis just had that size. He had that bulk. He was just bigger. And that was kind of the difference maker between the two of them. We're going to have a heavyweight fight where it's intriguing to see how much size is going to matter. On May 18th, Tyson Fury against Alexander Usyk. And Tyson Fury calls a press conference a couple of weeks ago, and I wonder why. And he wants to explain that size matters. He's the much bigger guy, that Usyk is a cruiserweight, and he starts giving us a history of when cruiserweights moved up to fight heavyweight, they wouldn't be as effective. And he's making some excellent points. You got to give him his due, showing us why historically he's going to win the fight because he has a size. But what he neglects to mention, Usyk, who moved up from cruiserweight, had already beaten 3 big heavyweights. Made the adjustment. He beat Anthony Joshua twice in a row, a big heavyweight who has skills.
Right.
So even though Fury has all this size, he could lean on Usyk. It might be a difference maker. I'm not saying it won't necessarily be. I'm not sure yet. Remains to be seen. You kind of wonder about that argument. But you mentioned Tyson before, and the Tyson-Jake Paul, is that going to be a fight or what's going on? But what they're doing that night, and this is for hardcore boxing fans, they've already put another fight on that show, which is a great one, a women's fight, a rematch, Katie Taylor against Amanda Serrano. They fought a couple of years ago at Madison Square Garden. What a great fight. And Katie Taylor won a debatable decision, could have gone either way, and they're going to have a rematch. So if you're a hardcore boxing fan, you're going to want to see that one fight. But let's face it, the attraction is Jake Paul and Mike Tyson. And to me, that's, James, an entertainment fight. I mean, you could see yourself having friends coming over who aren't big boxing fans because it's Mike Tyson and hanging out with you, watching the fight, having a good time, laughing. It's like a party fight, like a Super Bowl party.
Okay? Yeah, I don't see Tyson having, even though it's considered an exhibition, I just don't see him having the stamina to last with a younger fighter, even if he is more of an entertainment fighter. Now, he's a good, like you said, he's a good fighter, and Jake Paul, but he's not. I wouldn't put him up against some other premium fighters that out there. He understands his lane. This is his avenue. You fight over the hill fighters, and you go out and get entertainment, and you go out and get your bag. You get money because everybody wants to see. They have great, whoever the marketing team is, the public, they understand how this works, and they understand what people want to see. So you go with that. and you don't strategically, you don't go in and fight some top 5 contender and get knocked out, and your whole angle is gone now. So, but you go and fight Mike Tyson, who's 59 years old,
58
over the hill, and I think they'll last again. And you create an exhibition. Nobody's going to get knocked out here. But they're going to fight. But everybody wants to see Mike Tyson knock him out, and that's just not going to happen. That's not going to happen.
Let me tell you what I did the other day, and try not to laugh at me when I tell you this, okay? I'm older than Mike Tyson. I'm going to leave it at that. And I used to box. I was an amateur boxer in Golden Gloves. I got in front of the mirror, looked at the side of the mirror. Now I work out. I keep in good shape, run, go to the gym, so on. And all of a sudden, I started throwing bursts of punches for like 5 seconds, making believe coming forward. I was looking good in the mirror. I was looking great in the mirror. So you show a clip of me, a 4-second clip. I look as good as I did when I was younger. The punches are fast and a quick burst. Of course, they wouldn't have the same power. They wouldn't have the same snap. And God forbid I got hit in return. What would happen, when you're older? But that's what we see with Tyson. A trainer holding the pads, him throwing a couple of quick combinations. It looks good. It looks good, but it reminds me of what Tommy Morrison, when he had a part in the movie, what was it, Rocky IV with Sylvester Stallone. They asked him, well, how good a boxer could Stallone have been? And he said, well, he looked good hitting the bag. And then Morrison said, then again, everyone looks good hitting the bag. And that's what the case is.
Right.
At Tyson's age and all, but there are going to be people out there who are going to believe Jake Paul's a fraud, that Tyson can win, and just the idea that we're talking about it. It's coming up in conversation, and also my son-in-law texted me. He wants to know, oh, are you getting the fight? I'll maybe come over, to hang out. And I might wind up getting it just to hang out with him, to enjoy his company. But the fight itself, it comes under the category of entertainment. And that's what I tell people with certain fights, certain things that could be a gimmick. I say, don't feel guilty getting it. If it entertains you for an evening, by all means get it, but get it for the right reason. And, we had a number, we were talking to NFL, NBA before, but, certain of these athletes like the crossover. Let me ask you baseball, because we're winding down here. How's the season going so far? Any surprises?
I'm not sure. I believe New York, there's Judge got I was looking at Judge.
He got booed for strikeouts. He got booed. Judge cannot hit a breaking ball. Any pitcher who could throw a breaking ball, a curve away, he's a sucker for that. I don't know why they don't do it all the time.
Well, I mean, there's also, I mean, is he attributing his woes from a toe injury that he had?
He says it's going to have to have maintenance the rest of his career.
Right.
His career. And that was a fluke injury against the Dodgers, running into the fence. How could something like that have happened?
I'm not sure, to be honest with you.
Yankees pitcher Nestor Cortez told by Major League Baseball is pump fake pitch is illegal. I didn't hear that. Pump fake pitch? Does he have a pump fake pitch? I mean, usually it's how you hold a guy on and how you fake the run on base, notably first. But with Aaron Judge, Aaron Judge was booed. How are you supposed to? He's off to a slow start. What is the matter with these fans? I mean, after all he's done for the Yankees, he's a homegrown player. It's not my thing to boo him. I'm never going to boo a player unless there's a lack of hustle, a lack of effort. Then I'll boo a player. If a guy hits a fly ball and it's dropped, and he's not on second base, he's on first base because he was loafing and then couldn't recover to get to second, I'm going to boo him. I'm going to boo him if that's the case, but I'm not going to boo someone for striking out who's putting in the effort.
I mean, but what do you expect from, New York fans? I mean, they're not as bad as the Philly fans, but man, they're pretty tough.
Yeah, with the Yankee fans, I mean, they definitely could be that way. But right now, Juan Soto loves the fans, and the Juan Soto saga is going to be very interesting. If he could keep up having the type of year he's having, or have a great year, and there's no reason to believe why Juan Soto isn't going to continue to have a great year, because he's a proven commodity. He always has an outstanding year. And he loves it here in New York. What happens at the end of this year? Scott Boras is his agent. Scott Boras is going to milk the market out for Juan Soto. And chances are Juan Soto is going to want to stay here in the worst way, because he's going to love the fans, love playing in front of packed houses at Yankee Stadium. And it's going to be interesting to see where this goes, because the Yankees aren't going to go crazy. They might give him a 12-year deal, actually, but they're not going to give him ridiculous money. He's going to be maybe the highest paid player in the game, but to a point, So we're going to see, how that kind of unfolds. Your Atlanta Braves are looking good right now, right? I mean, you're happy.
Oh, man, like, what are they, 14-5 or something like that, 13-5?
Yeah. The other teams, the Phillies are hanging in, and even the Mets are hanging in.
He's getting shut up during allergies.
Hold on a second.
Any closing thoughts, James? We're lasting the distance here to 2 hours. We're supposed to have a bigger panel. You and I, we had good team chemistry. Who do you compare us to, Durant and Westbrook, or which one too would you compare us to?
No, I could compare you and Mac to Durant and Westbrook.
Oh, man, I'm Durant. I'm Durant in that, I guess. He's Westbrook, okay?
You and I be like the Splash Brothers, all right? In their heyday.
Let me tell you just a very quick story, because we have a couple of minutes left, maybe up to that amount. I used to get tickets for I used to go with a coworker of mine to NBA games. I was in charge of picking the game and getting the tickets, 100% in charge. So we go to Madison Square Garden, and I wasn't sure what I was getting. It was the birth of the Splash Brothers. He's sitting with me. These guys are hitting shots all over the place. He's looking at me. I had no idea these guys were going to. That's when they were first starting out, first making the name. It was like, wow, it really kind of like blew us away. But Klay Thompson, whether he comes back to the Warriors is a big question. Then he's not going to get a max deal or close to it anywhere. It would be crazy, for him to expect that. How badly does Klay Thompson want to be a Warrior? How much do the Warriors want to work things out with him, and how much is he willing to take that would be less to stay elsewhere? That'll determine whether he, finishes his career as a Golden State Warrior or not.
I think he stays with them and he takes the less money. The history just shows it, and he wants to be there. Steve Kerr wants him to be there. The fans want him to be there. It'd be good to see him come off the bench and still come out as a spot shooter here and there, because he still can shoot. He can still shoot, but he's just not. Clearly, he's not the same player after those injuries. But he's still an excellent shooter, and I think he can give you some quality minutes off the bench. So I think he stays there.
Okay, James. It's okay I call you James, because I know you called J Train.
Sure.
I could be called J Train. I'm Jack. I mean, I could, I got the initial also. I mean, the double J Train, the express J Train.
Exactly. We held the depot down, the station. We did well today.
We did. Okay. So tomorrow morning, I guess I'm on with Mac. I don't know with your schedule, James. I got Glove Fist, the boxing show with Frank Laterzo tomorrow night, 7 Eastern time. Okay.
I'll check it out.
All the best, James. Had a blast. Love talking to you. Take care.
You too.
This is Northeast Streaming Sports.